The night was colder than most in Dusty Creek, a small town that clung to the edge of the frontier, like a stubborn weed that refused to die. The lanterns along Main Street had long since dimmed, the saloon's piano gone quiet, and the only sound left was the distant rustle of the prairie wind. In the wagon yard behind the livery stable, a lone figure lay curled up in the straw, hidden beneath the shadow of a broken-down wagon. Her dress was travel-worn, the hem frayed, her shoes dusty from miles of walking. She looked young, too young to be alone. But life had left its marks on her face, lines of worry, and a weariness that came only from hardship. The cowboy spotted her when he came back from checking on his horse, a dark silhouette against the pale moonlight. He wasn't one to meddle in others' affairs, but something about the way she shivered in her sleep struck him, deeper than he cared to admit. He crouched low, studied her face, and saw not just a stranger, but a story he didn't yet know, one written in tears, in miles walked, in battles fought without anyone noticing. Without thinking much of it, he shrugged the blanket from his shoulders, rough wool smelling of saddle leather and long days under the sun, and gently laid it over her. She stirred, her eyes fluttering open in surprise, fear flashing before she registered the kindness in his gaze. "Don't be afraid," he said softly, his voice carrying the calm strength of someone used to storms. "Just figured you could use a little warmth." She held the blanket tighter, swallowing hard as though she wasn't sure whether to trust him. "I don't have anything to give back," she whispered. "Didn't ask for anything," he replied. "Name's Colt." She didn't answer at first, only watched him as though searching for some hidden motive. Finally she murmured, "Clara." For a moment silence hung between them, broken only by the creak of the wagon settling into the earth. He could have walked away right then, left her to the cold and to whatever story had driven her here. But something in her eyes kept him standing. He saw more than a stranger. He saw a loneliness that mirrored his own, an emptiness he'd carried for years without ever naming. "You hungry?" he asked, motioning toward his saddlebags. She hesitated but nodded. He fetched a piece of dried jerky and half a loaf of bread, watching her eat as though it were the first meal she'd had in days. And maybe it was. Under the stars, conversation began slowly. Small truths dropped like pebbles in a river. She told him she had nowhere left to go, that the family she once depended on was gone, that she'd been drifting from town to town trying to find work, trying to find something like safety. He didn't tell her everything about himself, not yet. But he admitted the ranch he ran outside town felt too quiet lately, too big for one man and a horse, when she looked at him with a spark of curiosity. Hours passed as easily as if they'd known each other for years. The moon gave way to dawn, painting the yard in soft gold. She had fallen asleep again, this time wrapped in his blanket without fear, and he found himself watching her with a protectiveness he hadn't expected. He thought of mornings alone at the ranch, of empty suppers and silent nights, of a life he had accepted as all he was meant for. Yet in that wagon yard with a girl who had less than nothing, he began to want more. When she woke again, he didn't waste time. "Clara," he said, meeting her uncertain gaze, "I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring for either of us. But I do know one thing, I'm tired of being alone. I reckon you might be tired of it too. I've got land, I've got work, I've got a place that could use some laughter again. You don't owe me a thing, but if you want, I'd be proud to give you a home." Her breath caught, her eyes widening as though he had just offered her the impossible. "Why?" she whispered. He smiled faintly, almost sheepishly, like a man confessing something to himself as much as to her. "Because giving you this blanket felt like more than just keeping you warm. Felt like the start of something I never knew I wanted until now." Tears filled her eyes, and for the first time since he met her, they weren't tears of fear or hunger, they were tears of hope. She nodded, clutching the blanket like it was more than cloth, like it was a promise. That morning, when the town awoke, they saw something unexpected. A cowboy and a girl walking side by side, out of the wagon yard, heading toward a ranch on the horizon, where two lonely souls were about to build a life they hadn't even dared to dream of. A blanket had been the beginning. But what grew from that moment was a bond stronger than hardship, stronger than loneliness, and truer than anything either had ever known. And for the cowboy, Colt, it was a life he had never thought he wanted, but one he now knew he couldn't live without. And if you enjoyed this story and want more powerful cowboy tales filled with heart, hope, and redemption, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss another story. Every view, like, and subscription helps us bring You more stories that touch the soul and keep the spirit of the frontier alive.